Turn up the dive, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's so I remember I. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the group. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, here on the Untold Radio Network. We are going to be live and pre-recorded on today's show today, and there's a very special reason for that. See, my guest actually has passed away. So what happened was we had some pre-recorded episodes together that were to air when my live guests sometimes don't show up. And then instead of having no episode for you guys to enjoy each and every week, I had some pre-recorded episodes that I could slide into those slots. And one of those we recorded to this day has actually already aired. But this one, fortunately, I haven't needed so far, and I thought that we would do today's episode as a tribute to Shetan because she has passed away. So throughout today's episode, if you have any comments or any nice memories or anything with Shetan, throw them in the comments section. And even though this is a recorded show going later on, I will be monitoring it, and I will throw them up on the screen for anyone to share those memories and enjoy with Shetan. So that is what we're going to be doing today. It's going to be a really good episode. We are going to be talking about ghost ships of the Great Lakes. So that's coming up in just a second here. But guys, if you guys have not checked out, we have a brand new documentary, Wisconsin's The Hairy Man of Dairyland, Wisconsin's Bigfoot. It is out now on Patreon and on Paraflix Paranormal Plus. You can check it out on either of those streaming platforms and check that episode out. And let's see. Then, if you guys want to meet us in person this Saturday, we are going to be at Sasquatch's Variety Shop in Princeton, Wisconsin. We are going to be selling some merchandise, selling some stuff out there outside of Sasquatch's Variety Shop, which is right across the street from the Princeton Flea Market. So you guys can come out and make a whole morning of it. Check out the flea market, check out Sasquatch's, as well as check out the Caps team. Myself, Ma, Chris, and Ellie are all going to be appearing out there this weekend, probably about from 7 a.m. until noon, 1 o'clock. So come on out and enjoy that with us. Then, guys, we are going to be at Silcon in Gaze, Illinois, September 19th and 20th. We are coming to the Van Meter Visitor Festival September 27th, and I am doing a public presentation exploring the paranormal at the Neenah Public Library on October 29th. I'm sorry, I'm not just not doing well today. So and then, guys, next year coming up, we are going to be at Cape Girardeau, Missouri for CapCon Missouri, April 17th through the 19th, and Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, May 8th through the 10th. So that is what we got coming up here. But today, guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and sharing this with me as we pay tribute to Shetan Noir.
Today we remember the life of Tracy Hurl, better known to the paranormal and cryptid community as Shetan Noir. Shetan may be best remembered by her signature style. Her hair, clothing, and even her vendor booth at events was all teal, which made her stand out in the crowd just as much as her shining and energetic personality. Looking back, Shetan was born to be seen, perform, and be the star attraction. She brought this to her role as a performer of belly dance, fire, and swords, not only on the stage, but her role as an inspiration and teacher to others who wish to follow her lead. Performing with cabarets, sideshows, and fairs, as well as doing tarot readings, Shetan was always in the spotlight. Shetan is probably best known for her role as cryptozoologist, having spent 25 years researching the paranormal and cryptozoology fields and participating in expeditions in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Ohio, Vermont, New York, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Her fascination began with lake monsters at an early age when she first learned about the Loch Ness Monster. Then, hearing reports of lake monsters in her own state of Michigan. Her research since grew to include Michigan's own Dogman, the Nain Rouge, Bigfoot, and ghost hunting. She was the lead investigator for the Michigan chapter of the North American Dogman Project, and also ran the paranormal investigation team of the Michigan Center for Unexplained Events and Phenomenon. Shetan has also done paranormal investigations at the Randolph County Insane Asylum, Detroit's 6th Precinct, Greystone Manor, historic Hoover House, Gettysburg, and the historic Scott County Jail. She has taught courses on the paranormal history of the Great Lakes and cryptozoology of North America at Owens Community College and Kellogg Community College, as well as classes for the University of Magikus that is co-owned by Patti Negri. Shetan was a respected member of the paranormal and cryptozoology community and a frequent guest on podcasts as well as library presentations and conventions, presenting on a wide range of topics. A self-proclaimed rock hound and gem collector, this interest expanded to fossils and, of course, dinosaurs of the land, air, and sea, including sharks and other marine creatures. As owner of Squatch GQ magazine, LLC, she brought this interest to others with the publication of Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures, Rockhound and Prospector magazine, as well as into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal magazine and Sasquatch GQ magazine. Shetan had an immense love of all animals and a passion for visiting zoos and aquariums. But most of all, she loved her own furry family that she took everywhere with her. Shetan is survived by her parents and 2 brothers, and in the memories of those who she has influenced along the way.
Again, thank you guys so much for joining us today as we pay tribute to the one and only Shetan Noir, a good friend of myself and many on my team as well. I got to meet her in Ann Arbor, Michigan for the first time back in 2020, and have since spoke with her at several conventions and been included on many panels with her, as well as you saw towards the end of that documentary there, or the tribute. And very unfortunate of her passing. But as I said, today we have a special unreleased recorded episode with her about ghost ships in the Great Lakes. So as we go through today's show, if you guys have any polite comments or thoughts or memories with Shetan, throw them in the comments section, and I'll pop them up on screen as we watch today's episode together. So without any further ado, please enjoy today's episode with Shetan Noir and Ghost Ships of the Great Lakes. I'll see you at the end. Back to the show, Shetan Noir. Welcome back, Shetan.
Well, hello again.
Hello. Again, I want to thank you again because we are doing a couple of these shows here today to kind of fill in whenever I have an emergency or something, and I guess no shows or something comes up. So who knows when this is going to air, but we are here to share some really cool stories and stuff because, like I said, every time that I have you on my show, I learn something, and I learn something about you, and everything is just, it's really fun and entertaining. And today we have a really interesting topic that I know that you do presentations on, and you've done a lot of research on, and I have never heard you talk about this before. So today I'm excited because I get to take a back seat to this, because this is something that I know very little about, surprisingly, that it's right here in my own backyard under the water and so on and so forth. So we're going to be talking about ghost ships of the Great Lakes. Now, I told you there's 2 ghost ships that I know about. Now, the first one, is probably a gimme, gimme Gucci, because it's the Great Lake, gimme Gucci. There you go. That was my very, very bad joke of the show. So now that that's out of the way, the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Okay.
That is my one big one that I know here of the Great Lakes that went down, and the whole song, the legend lives on from the on. Who hasn't heard that song? It's amazing. All right. If I sing any more of it, we're going to get copyrighted, so I'm not going to do that to Doug. Anyway, so that one, and thanks to my good friend, our good friend, Chad Lewis, I am aware of the that went down. So those are my 2 ships, the Edmund Fitzgerald and the Christmas Tree ship.
Okay. The Ralph Simmons.
There you go. All right. So that is the I know there's a lot of haunted lighthouses, but I don't know if those count as ships and stuff, but
no, and honestly, so just to give you some info, this is my second favorite topic to talk about.
Oh, I know.
My first favorite is lake monsters, but so
hang on, one sec. We're gonna get into this right here, but I want to point out you have an entire book on lake monsters and other creatures of the Great Lakes. So I assume that there's quite a bit of history and knowledge that you have on the Great Lakes, and probably, maybe, hopefully, we're gonna hear some stories of maybe lake monsters causing ghost ships. Maybe.
Probably not. Not like that. Because a lot of our shipwrecks are due to weather anomalies. So, being that I teach a course for community colleges on the paranormal history of the Great Lakes, I've done quite a bit of research into our Great Lakes, and so there's a rough estimate that the bare minimum of sunken ships resting on the bottoms of the Great Lakes is 20,000 ships. I actually think that number's higher. I think that the number is actually maybe closer to 50,000, because that's not taking into account the very early ships, canoes,
Mhm.
rowboats.
Definition, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people, when they think of a shipwreck, they're thinking either a Spanish galleon or a tall ship or a freighter. And they're not really taking into account the small personal crafts that, like, everyday fishermen would use, fur trappers would use. But those count as boats too. So you have to keep in mind that a sunken ship or a ship that's gone down on the Great Lakes, anything qualifies, from a kayak all the way up to one of the Lakers, which is another name for freighter.
Now, when you're talking about ships and stuff, are you also counting the amount of cars and vehicles out there from ice fishers that go through?
I'm not counting those, even though there is a ship that sank with I believe it was over 400 Nash Ramblers on it. And it was the week before or after Black Friday. Black Thursday, when the stock market crashed. So that motor company was never able to recover from that loss. And the ship sits in under just over 400 feet of water. So it's not even a recreational dive. There's no way they could ever bring those up. So yeah, those are gone. But so you mentioned two at the beginning. The Rouse Simmons, I would classify as a ghost ship. Edmund Fitzgerald, I put into a different category because people don't see the Edmund Fitzgerald sailing the waters. Some of it's like, so its bell's been brought up. Its ship's bell has been brought up. Different artifacts have been brought up off of it. And the locations that those artifacts are stored at, some people say are haunted because of the Edmund Fitzgerald. But the only thing that is haunting about Edmund Fitzgerald is the fact that there are human remains on her and around her, which makes it a underwater gravesite. But she has never been seen sailing since the day that she sank.
Gotcha. Yep.
There are other ships that have been reported as being seen out on the lake, even though we know that they have sank. And the Rouse Simmons, the Christmas tree ship, is one of those ships.
Very cool. Yeah, I wasn't implying, I guess, that the Edmund Fitzgerald was a ghost ship. I was just kind of mentioning the only two ships that do that.
The Edmund Fitzgerald, or the Mighty Fitz, is one of the most popular and well-known shipwrecks in the world. The other would be the Titanic.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't in the Great Lakes, though.
No, but if we're talking shipwrecks, people know the Titanic and they know the Edmund Fitzgerald, and that's only because of the Gordon Lightfoot song.
Correct, yeah.
Like I said, there's rough estimate minimum over 20,000 ships have sank in the Great Lakes. Edmund Fitzgerald was the one that Gordon Lightfoot sang a song about. And while they did go down during a storm, that wasn't even the worst storm that the Great Lakes have ever seen. Okay, so the Alpena storm took down 90 ships.
Wow.
In one evening. That storm happened on an October day. there was a blizzard blowing from Nebraska east. So it was picking up speed as it came across the plains. Now, what drops the temperature of the water in the Great Lakes and produces the lake effect snow is the wind. So people went out sailing on this, it was middle of October day. Perfectly beautiful day, 70 degrees. A lot of people were doing their last boat rides of the season, and nobody knew that this weather front was coming. As soon as it got dark, the wind started to pick up and the temperature started to drop. They went from a 70-degree day to a blizzard at midnight. There were ships that were headed from Michigan to Wisconsin that got completely turned around and ended up back at Michigan. Those were the lucky ones because they actually made it back to shore.
Yeah.
So the reason that this storm was called the Alpena storm was there was a side wheel paddle ship called the Alpena that got caught in a bay, exposed. And the wind was basically using her as a wrecking ball and smashed all the ships on each side of her. Now, this was Lake Michigan. Then it blew across the state of Michigan and hit Lake Huron. So it picked up even more speed. So midday, October, it's 70 degrees. By 12 o'clock that night, it's an instant blizzard and people are caught out on the lake unprepared. In a blizzard type situation, and the water starts to freeze. Now, we have an interesting phenomenon here in the Great Lakes where you'll have great sheets of ice until you get to the shoreline. And then you have boulders of ice rocking back and forth on the water. They're essentially battering rams. So even if you could get close to shore, unless you could jump that 6-10 feet and hit actual land, you're getting pulverized by boulders of ice. So this was a very bad situation for anybody who was caught out on that storm. And that was just one of the major storms that happened.
So we have a ferry. Let's kind of back up here. So we have Lake Michigan, Lake Huron are on either side. Lake Michigan is between Wisconsin and Michigan, right?
Yes.
And then you said Lake Huron is on the other side of Michigan.
Yep, that it's so Michigan. So over on this side we have Lake Michigan.
Mm.
Up above here is Lake Michigan connecting into Lake Huron. Lake Huron's over in the on the thumb side, and the other land border would be Canada. Lake Superior is Michigan on the bottom. The north or the southwest corner is Wisconsin. Then it goes up the north shore of Minnesota, and then it goes Canada all the way across the top and back down the east side south. Lake Erie is bordered by parts of Michigan, Ohio, New York, and on top, Ontario. Lake Ontario is completely surrounded by Ontario. All are connected by different waterways.
Perfect. All right. So I want to get that out here so we know
There's
where
5 of them.
Yeah. And then, so we have a ferry that goes from Wisconsin to Michigan.
Yep.
How
I've
long?
seen it.
Yeah, I haven't taken it, but I've thought
I've
about
never
it.
been on it. It's perfectly safe, but it
Yeah, ghost
costs
ships. It's
it costs so per passenger is like $119. That's not even including your car to
yeah.
get it on. So
It
to
is a
me,
car ferry, by the way. Yeah.
and it costs the same amount and as long to drive around and up for anything I want to do in Illinois or Wisconsin. So I'd rather just drive. Even though I have to go through Chicago, I'd still just rather drive.
Okay. So my point then is, how long does it take, do you know, to get from the Wisconsin side to the Michigan side with the ferry?
I believe it's about 4 or 5 hours
Okay.
in
So-
good weather.
Okay. So 4 or 5 hours. So we'll say even that's 6 hours. So when we're talking about these ghost ships and stuff, you said that these ships were caught out in midnight in Lake Michigan, right?
Mhm.
So why were they out on the water at midnight crossing the water?
So most of your passenger ships, the Alpina was a side-wheeled passenger ship. She was going from Michigan to Wisconsin, but that's a slower ship. It's a steam-powered
Or
paddle ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be slower than your modern day car ferries. Most of the ships that were caught out that day were, some of them were passenger ships like the side-wheeled paddle Alpina, but most of them were schooners or freight ships that were trying to make a run down to like Chicago, across to Wisconsin, or up to Michigan's UP to take freight.
So more
And
up and down the lake instead of just straight across.
and a lot of those, so you're, depending on what ship you had, you're never at an advantage. Okay. Your wheeled paddle ships were not really designed for the Great Lakes. Yes, you could take more passengers, but those side paddles only go so fast. If you had a sail ship or a schooner that had sails, you are driven by the wind. If the winds are nice and steady, you're great. But if you're in a storm, your sails are getting torn apart. So you think, okay, well, I'd rather have a steamship. That's great. Until you get stuck in the trough of the waves and your ship's not making progress and you start taking on water. And every sailor and captain knew, once your ship started, if you had a steamship, you only had so much amount of time. If your ship started taking on water, you only had so much time to get away from the ship before it exploded. Because what happens when ice cold water hits a burning hot steam oven? It explodes. And those, up until your mid 1900s, those were the only, you had your coal burning stoves, your coal burning engines, you had your wood burning engines, you had your steam engines, you had your sail ships, and you had your side paddles. And none of them were really that great on the Great Lakes.
Sounds like it, yeah. I mean, you for me, when I hear about the paddle ships and stuff, I think of, like Huck Finn and stuff going down the Mississippi, or the river, the African Queen, or I don't know if that's a paddle ship, but that's what I picture. So.
Yeah, side paddle ships, they work great on rivers.
Yeah.
Because rivers are much more controlled with having two close bodies of land that they can pilot up and down them. But the Great Lakes, they are such big, vast, open spaces that when there's any type of wind that picks up, the waves also react. And there's a phenomenon with the Great Lakes called the Three Sisters. And it's actually what I believe took down the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
So the first wave that hits the boat and, slams against it is 20 feet. That's a big wall of water. But as soon as that wall of water has hit the boat, another one's hitting it. And that one's probably 40 feet. But that one's crashing over the top of the boat. Now, if you haven't secured all of your hatches down, you're taking on water. So that 40-foot wave has already pushed your boat kind of down in the front. Well, now here comes a 60-foot wave that crashes right behind it and takes your boat even further under the water. Edmund Fitzgerald hit the lake bottom going at full speed. That's what tore her in half. She dug into the lake bed of Lake Superior. She was going at full speed. Now, they were also in a storm, so that accounts for the wave activity.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never been. Well, I've been on canoes and stuff. I've never been on a boat that I can think of. So I think maybe I'll rethink that.
We used to go out on Lake Michigan perch fishing on the different trawlers or fishing, charters. I think the last time I was in a boat, it wasn't a boat. I was out on Lake Huron and I kayaked out to see Turnip Rock with my friend and her son, and then we kayaked back. But even that, it was smooth going out. But when we were coming back, there was a 15-inch chop on the water, and it was like, okay, are we there? Yeah, because it's about an hour kayaking both ways.
Jesus.
And it was like getting rougher and rougher.
All right. Well, let's talk about ghost ships then. So,
Okay.
What ships are people seeing out there? Tell me the ghost stories here.
Okay, so when we're talking ghost ships of the Great Lakes, the three most popular ones would be the Rouse Simmons, the Christmas tree ship, the Kamloops, and she's a ghost ship for a different reason. And then there is the story of the Ben and Eckburn. So the Rouse Simmons, which is made famous because she was a Christmas tree ship. So there was a standing tradition that all boats had to be in their moorings and docked by the Thursday after Black Friday. So you had all these last minute ships and captains going up to the UP of Michigan, Escanaba area, and collecting Christmas trees. And then they would sail down the coasts of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan, going into each port, selling off Christmas trees. Now, the Rouse Simmons with Captain Santa was very popular with the different ports because he would sell the Christmas trees at like bargain, prices, which meant a lot of families who could maybe all they could afford was a Christmas tree. These families got a Christmas tree. And he would come sailing into harbor with lights done up saying Christmas tree ship. And he had a long white beard. And he was very popular with a lot of the different ports because of this. So the Rouse Simmons was actually way past her prime when she sank. And a lot of people thought she shouldn't have been on the water in the first place. But according to the source material that we have, he had as many Christmas trees on her as he could fit. Her holds were filled with Christmas trees. Her deck was filled with Christmas trees. And as he was sailing her across Lake Michigan to Wisconsin, they ran into a storm. And now, through the fog banks, a Coast Guard cutter or a Coast Guard captain saw that they were struggling. But they had already passed his station, so he called down to the next station for that station to send out a light ship to help them. Within that time, she sank. Now, a lot of people will ask, why didn't they take to the life ship or to the, lifeboat or abandoned ship? So what happens when you're carrying logs or lumber or trees or anything like that on a ship, as soon as those logs or trees break loose on the deck and they're floating around the ship, they're battering rams.
Mm-hmm.
You jump into the water and you're getting smashed with a 1,000-pound, tree or branch or debris. And your lifeboat isn't going to do much, better either, because most lifeboats were not built to withstand a storm on the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably familiar with this term, but it's false hope. And that is what a life ship was. False hope.
Mm-hmm.
It was the last, it was basically there to give you the idea that you had a safe option. They never were. So the Ralph Simmons sinks. And over the next couple years, they find different clues that say, yes, she sank. One is all these Christmas trees started floating ashore. Then they find the captain's wallet, and eventually they were able to find the Ralph Simmons rusting underneath the water with a cargo hold full of Christmas tree ships. Now, it's said that along that coastline, up to, I believe it's 3 harbors, Wisconsin, or 2 harbors, Wisconsin, that on days when there are bouts of fog, you might see the Ralph Simmons. If you're out on the lake and a fog starts coming in and you start smelling pine trees, then that's an indication that the Ralph Simmons is probably nearby, and that's an omen for you to get off the lake. Generally, ghost ships appear when bad weather is going to happen, and it's like the supernatural paranormal indicator that you should get off the lake now.
Wow. I was pulling up a picture here. Well, it didn't work. Hang on. Not that. Do this. Share screen. Window. There we go. That's the actual Ralph Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can actually see the little tree still. Yeah. I know in Chad's presentation he has a picture of the inside hold.
Yes.
Had all the trees, and I was looking for that picture, but I didn't I don't see that one. Didn't come up here, but yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool because I want to see the picture, but
yeah.
Yeah, they found the ship and they showed it all. So wow. Yeah. That's sad. That's really sad. Like cargo ship goes down or something, or a passenger ship, you lose lives and that. That's all. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, this guy was well beloved, a great guy, anybody that wanted a tree got one for Christmas, and
right.
True.
Now I do have a side story to that. So there's my goblin. Come here, babies. So I was doing my Haunted Great Lakes presentation and talking about the Ralph Simmons, and there was a gentleman who was watching it on Zoom, and he had a relative who was on the Ralph Simmons.
Mm.
And this was an uncle of his. And the way he told it to me, so yeah, it was actually two of his uncles. So they were on the Ralph Simmons and they had joined the crew late. They were really not expecting the weather that they were experiencing, so they had not packed any winter clothing. So they get into their home port in Wisconsin and they beg Captain Santa to let them go home. They only live maybe a mile away from where the boat is docked. Let us go home, get our wool clothing, come back. We'll sail down to, Illinois with you. And then, we'll make our way back up on our own. And okay, yeah, you guys need winter clothing. So they get a cab. So the cabbie was new to the area, did not, even though they're giving him directions, the cabbie doesn't get them to their home and back before the Ralph Simmons sets sail again. So the boys get back to the dock and the Ralph Simmons is already on her way. So the boys, who ended up being this gentleman's uncles, make arrangements to get down to the next harbor that they're going to, sail into. As they're en route for that, well, that's when the Ralph Simmons sinks. So, because they went home for their coats, they actually were able to live on.
Wow. Where did it actually go down?
So it's the closest point is, I want to say Two Harbors, Wisconsin. And it's like offshore. It's a ways offshore. I think it's still considered a recreational dive because it's just within that. I think it's up to 150 feet as a recreational dive, and then anything after that is a technical dive. So, because I know people do go down and take pictures of the Christmas trees and stuff like that. The only person, so down in Illinois, you have Captain Santa's wife and daughters waiting for him, and he never comes. So once they received reports that Christmas trees were floating ashore, then they pretty much knew that something had happened to the Ralph Simmons and he was never coming home again. And it took a couple years before, I believe it was a fishing trawler in his nets, he brought up the wallet of the captain, and it had personal artifacts of the captain in the wallet. So they were pretty sure that it was Captain Santa.
And as the ship was going down, Captain Santa unbound all the trees on the deck so that the trees would float and go all the way down the lake, down to Illinois, and everyone would still get a Christmas tree, even if he couldn't make it. Very touching story. All right, now moving on. You cannot disband that truth. I will take that to my grave. That's what happened. Anyway.
Okay.
Awesome. That's cool. So what is the next?
So the next one I'm going to tell you about is the SS Kamloops. And this ship sank in Lake Superior. Now, she sits in over 400 feet of water, so she is a technical dive. Meaning,
I'm going to see if I can find a picture of that while we're at it here.
Meaning anybody who's dove on her, you have to be certified. And it's only marine archaeologists and environmental scientists who actually dive on her. Now, the reason she's a ghost ship is not because she comes back up and sails. It's because she still has a human corpse on her.
Ooh.
So now imagine you're in 400 feet of water. There's no quick ascent to the top. Just like in salt water, you can't go immediately from the depths to the top, or you'll get the bends. You'll get air bubbles in your blood. So, as scientists, environmentalists would go swimming through the Kamloops, a all-white skeleton, like rubbery skeleton of a human being would come. There goes a goblin. Would come floating out of different parts of the ship, because as they swam through the ship, it would create a wake and would animate the corpse. So now they go down in teams and they warn people, okay, old Whitey or the captain or whoever you want to call him is down there. Don't freak out when this corpse comes out and starts interacting with you. It's just the waves, but that's still like the scariest thing. And we know that the captain did not go down with the ship. So a lot of times the corpses that you find on the ships are the cooks and the sailors who were not on duty, who were actually sleeping in their bunks or in their wherever they were catching a nap, because they were the ones who were caught off guard. So your cooks are usually in the galley, trying to keep everything from flying all over the place, trying to keep coffee going, maybe a hot meal going for those crew members who are battling with the storm. And if you're trying to sleep through it, because storms can come out of nowhere on the Great Lakes, and you can go to sleep and it's totally peaceful, water's calm, and then you can wake up to being thrown out of your bunk because the wave action is so very, very hard. So a lot of times when we find or hear of bodies being inside the ships, generally it is either the cook or it is the crew member who unfortunately was sleeping during that storm. Hi, Goblin. What is it? It's a goblin. That's my little goblin. So with the Kamloops, and now there's a goblin war going on. With the Kamloops, she was caught. There was actually 2 ships sailing, and the Kamloops was caught off guard with the wave and storm, and she sank in front of the other ship. Now, this was in icy weather, and the crew that did make it off of the ship were able to get to some of the Apostle Islands. Unfortunately, at that time, there was no shelters on the Apostle Islands. And so most of the crew froze to death on the islands and were not found until the following spring.
Did they become cannibals?
No, but a lot of them were eaten by wolves, coyotes, things like that.
That'll be funny to anyone who actually watches all the episodes in order. Anyway, that's this. I'm thinking. I think this is the right ship. I looked up here, but this is a big ship.
It is. It is.
So tell me again, just real quick, what happened to this one? How did it go down? Storm, obviously, but
winter storm. I believe it was the QDoc. Was it the QDoc that was sailing alongside of her? And on their radar, they said they saw something large raise up out of the water and then disappear back down. So the thought is that she struck something, maybe a block of, an ice, a sandbar, something like that. and she hit that, and then she sank.
Went the way of the Titanic, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. So do people, so you talked about the captain or the cook or whatever being seen on there, but do people still see the ship itself?
No, they don't.
Okay.
So the Kamloops she's a ghost ship for a different reason.
Yeah.
As in, she actually has a ghost on her, and she's, sitting at the bottom of Lake Superior. So, and the reason that the corpse is still so very well preserved is, one, it's in the confines of the ship, and two, that ship is basically like a deep freeze.
Yeah.
Because the bottom, the temperatures at the bottom of Lake Superior are so cold that no bacteria can form, and if you don't have bacteria, you don't bloat, and if you don't bloat, you don't float.
Yep. That's
why there's that line in the Edmund Fitzgerald song, Lake Superior never gives up her dead, and that's the reason why, is because she's so cold that she just keeps whoever she wants.
That's a good song. I would play it if I could, but everyone should go look it up. So very cool. All right, and you have one more. What's the next one?
So the next one is the Bannock burn.
Yeah, sure. How do you spell that? Keep talking. I'm finding a picture of it.
I'm trying not to laugh. So the Bannock burn was a large freighter, and during her era, it was not uncommon to have very young crews. So the Bannock burn, her crew were between the ages of 15 and 22. Wow. And once you see how big of a ship she was, you'll realize how awe-inspiring that is.
Wow.
So imagine a 22-year-old captain piloting that bad boy across Lake Superior.
Well, now, when was this? Because a lot of the times, people were, we think of being an adult at
1800s,
40s or whatever. Yeah. So, but back in the day, life expectancy wasn't that long. When you turned 15, 16, you had a job, you had a family, you were ready to go.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 22-year-old captain, young crew.
What happened? So she's last seen making her way across Lake Superior, and the captains of other boats are seeing her, but they're seeing her disappear in and out of the fog banks. And because there is fog and some weather out on Lake Superior, most of the captains are minding their own business. They're paying attention to their ships, but at least one captain notices that she's kind of taking a weird route along the lake shore. And he soon loses track of her in the fog. Well, that's the last she's seen. A week goes by and she doesn't make port. A couple of weeks go by, a month. After 3 months, everybody's pretty sure she sank. And she's written off as, being shipwrecked. She's gone. And then a couple of years later, there's another ship that is sailing along that same course. But they're doing so because they're caught in a very bad storm. And the captain's idea is, if we stay in water just deep enough, if we get into trouble, we can abandon ship and at least make it to shore. We can see the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
And they're thinking, this is a pretty, good plan, seeing as we're struggling in this, storm to make any progress on the lake. And as they're making their way along, one of the men starts to yell out an alert, and he's yelling, "Ship ahead, ship ahead." And the men on the ship go out and they're like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. Here comes this. There is a ship headed straight for them." So they're raising their lights, they're ringing their bells, and this oncoming ship is not like changing course. So the captain says, "Okay, steer out into the lake. We're going to bypass them." So they do. And as the oncoming ship passes them, of course, this crew goes out and they're making some unkind words. They're giving some hand gestures, a couple of, salutes, just showing their displeasure at the fact that, you ran us off our course and now we're in peril. So that ship passes them and they're like, "Fine, let's get back onto our route." So it's an effort for them to get back onto their route. Storm's even that much worse now. And the captain's like, "Just stay on this route. We're in deep enough water. We'll be okay." Well, one of the men on deck starts yelling at them, "Ship ahead, ship ahead." And now they're thinking that either the captain doesn't know what he's doing and he's in the wrong, lane of traffic, or these other captains are just trying to do the same thing as they're doing. So once again, they're raising their lights, they're ringing their bells, trying to get the other crew's attention, to no avail. And as they jut out into the water again, as the ship gets closer, they realize it's the same ship that just passed us. And the captain and the crew are questioning themselves, like, how is that possible that they were able to go past us, circle around, and come right back on a straight course for us when we're struggling just to make a straight line? Something's not right. So the captain and crew are like, they want to see who's on the ship. So as the ship starts to pass them, they read the name on the side of the ship. And it says Benenakburn. And they all get quiet for a second. Benenakburn. Oh, crap. That ship sank. And by now, they're across from each other, and the Benenakburn's moving past them. And they're all stood pretty stunned and quiet. And as the story goes, they get maybe an eighth of a mile past the Benenakburn, and they hear a loud explosion. And it's their thoughts that the Benenakburn chased them off of course because they were headed for a rock outcropping that the Benenakburn hit. And that's what took her down. And so the crew of the Benenakburn was trying to save this new ship from a similar fate.
So was the Benenakburn, the ghost version of it, traveling the same direction that the real one would have been? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh. Wow. So it's hard enough to talk about like ghosts in a house or something like that and why they're there, but why are we seeing like not just a person? Because a person we can argue and say, okay, it has a soul, it has energy, it left that there. Now you're seeing an entire metal. This thing is metal. So it's nothing. It's a big metal object.
It's not so much the boats and the crews. It's the element in which they're lost. So we know that water is a great conductor for paranormal activity, but we also know that quartz is a great conductor of paranormal activity. And what is sand? It's billions of tiny little quartz particles. Most of the bedrock, most of the rock around the Great Lakes and in the Great Lakes has a high amount of quartz crystal in it. Therefore, making the Great Lakes the perfect paranormal area for any type of ghostly activity.
I suppose. Yeah. I don't know. It's just you can't wrap your head around stuff like that. Like,
And plus, we look at, so why do most hauntings happen? It's because a life was cut short, or was cut short in such a way that there is so much intense sorrow or pain or anxiety or terror that the person whose spirit is still haunting, they need closure, and they're never going to get it because there's no healing from what they died from. And I can't think of any more horrifying of a way to die than you go down in a sinking ship and there's no one coming to rescue you. Your air pocket might only last you a couple of hours, but by then you're going to have frozen to death or have hypothermia because of the cold waters. So you don't die instantly. You die after the fact. So the ship that you're on sank. You're still alive, but there's no way you're getting to the surface.
Yeah. You die in a fire or something, you get asphyxiated, the smoke takes you out pretty quick before anything else, and electrocuted, you basically shock yourself to death. And yeah, I mean, drowning's got to be probably the worst way to go.
Right.
I don't know. But okay, so that's all well and good for the person. But again, we're talking about seeing a giant metal object. Where do we get the metal ghost from? I mean, and not even just the ships.
Well, but the human beings are the ones sailing the ship. So if they never made it to port, and we're going with the stone tape theory where things repeat themselves over and over again. So because they never made it to port, and because water and quartz are such great conductors of paranormal activity, they just keep replaying it.
Fair. So do you think that this ghost ship, the crew seemed to think that they were trying to warn them off course and stuff, but it kind of seems more like, based on what you're saying, is they're just replaying this moment and they happen to take it as a replay. Now we also hear vehicles and car crashes and stuff like that, where people will be driving down the highway and someone will swerve out and this car does weird and saves their life. Kind of the same situation, but there you have a little bit more of a intent behind an interaction of thought, whereas this ghost ship's just kind of repeating. Is that where we're at?
I think it's a paranormal, it's a tape being played, but I do think that the human spirits that are attached to it have a consciousness of what's happening, and they can choose when to interact with the living. So it's kind of like, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make noise? Yes, it makes noise. So any day of the week, this could be happening, but because there's not other ships around, maybe it's not so apparent. Or maybe it has to be the right set of circumstances, like a storm that would take down a ship, that would drive it close to shore.
Yeah, because if you're talking about a bad set of circumstances where the ship was that close to the shore anyway. So the average ship that's sailing that route daily, nightly, yearly, whatever have you, is not seeing that because they're not under the same situation
Right.
of distress.
Right. And we're talking about, so now the lake beds are so well mapped that they know where each little pebble is, each little sandbar is. Not so much even in the early 1800s, not so much. I mean, there were like sailors' tales of this land formation called the Pinnacle of Doom in Lake Superior that most people said were sailors' tales. Well, guess what? It's actually a shoal, and ships got smashed on this thing because what would happen is, in regular circumstances, you would glide right over it, not even know it was there. But in a storm where you have valleys and waves, you could be sailing across from it and suddenly the water drops from beneath you and the ship goes onto, this point of rock.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what was once thought a sailor's tale, the Pinnacle of Doom, no, it's actually a real underwater land formation that has bitten quite a few ships in its time.
Well, we are at our hour mark, and I have a lot more questions than I did at the beginning of the show. So unfortunately,
see what you did. See what you did. You opened another rabbit hole.
I'm just going to leave this hanging here for another future day when we have time to kill and stuff. That there's the whole Michigan Triangle too, isn't there, in the Great Lakes?
Actually, each one of the Great Lakes has a Devil's Triangle. Lake Superior has two. Lake Erie is a quad-angle, and Lake Ontario has more of a square.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're screwed. That's another whole thing. I mean, I don't know. So we could go into a lot more of this, and then there's tons of lighthouses all along there.
Yep, there's haunted lighthouses. There's Devil's Triangles. Well, we're covering lake monsters. There's hoodoo ships. There are ship, not wrecks, but catastrophes that the Great Lakes have been known for. There's pirates.
I was going to say, do we have pirates?
Oh yeah, hell yeah, we got pirates.
Sweet.
A pirate. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to bring this up before when we started filming this. I said, I only know about the two ships, so you're gonna take this, and Shetan goes, I'm the captain, and I'm like, oh,
Capitan.
Yes, exactly. All right. Oh man, yeah. It's never a dull moment. There's so many rabbit holes and stuff that you can go down with this stuff. It's just fascinating to be able to research and take all these things. There's not enough time in any one person's life to explore the depths, because this is fascinating. One of the things I'm a cryptid guy. I like the critters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I dig into the paranormal, what gets me is I'll do an episode for Caps. We'll go somewhere and investigate, and the investigation was, whatever. We get some stuff happening, blah blah blah. I've seen it, I've done it, I've been there. But what really gets me is I spend days investigating the history of something. We investigated the haunted Cicero Church in Illinois. Okay, so we investigated this haunted church, but I spent a good, probably a whole day researching the reason why that church was so prominent in that area was because it held the victims of these the ship that capsized right there in the harbor. And
yep,
that was fascinating.
That would be the Eastland, and She holds the record for the highest body count of a freshwater ship disaster.
Yep. So many people and so many whole families died on that ship that this church, which originally was a funeral home, made so much money that it could expand and became this huge industry right there, all off the money that it made off that one disaster.
Yeah. Over 1,500 people. And there wasn't, they were not prepared for that massive casualties. I mean, and the fact that, like you said, whole families were wiped out. They were waiting up to a month afterwards for people to come claim bodies because they had to put like telegrams and messages in newspapers all around the country saying, if you had loved ones who worked for such and such factory, please come to Chicago and identify the body. You know, I mean, it was horrible.
It was a company outing. They chartered 3 ships to go across to this amusement park or something for the day. And everyone was on the edge of the boat, you know, waving goodbye. The entire, you know, the husband, wife.
Well, what happened was, so everybody wanted on the Eastland because she was the newer ship. And what happened was everybody wanted an outside rail. So people boarding the ship immediately ran across the other side railing. And what happens when you have hundreds of people running across the ship? And not to mention the Eastland, she was very narrow, but very tall. She was prone to capsizing, and the captain and the owner knew that before the ship had ever been, like, you know, hired for that. And so people are rushing across the deck and it's rocking back and forth. And that's what made her capsize, because the engineer down in the hold could not balance the tanks. And yeah, she just, she turned turtle, as they would say.
Yeah, literally just flipped over right there at the dock on its side.
Yep.
Wasn't even out in the water, didn't even set sail yet, just gave up the ghost. Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. If you want more information on that too, go check out Wisconsin Caps on YouTube and look at the Cicero Church, the most haunted church in Illinois episode. The beginning of that episode, we go into detail on this, and there's some more pictures and stuff because it's part of the history of that building. So interesting. Awesome. Well, I thank you so much again for coming on this week. For anybody, you have your ghosts, cryptid lake monsters and stuff of Lake Michigan book as well available for anybody that wants more stuff on the Great Lakes as well. Tell everybody where they can find you and all your stuff that you got going on.
Okay, well, come on, Elia. So you can find us on Amazon, Shetan Noir, or type in Squatch GQ magazine. That will bring up all the magazines, books, cookbooks, and journals that I have available. And you can find me on Facebook at Shetan Noir. That's where I post most of my activities with presentations and paracons, and any expeditions that I'm doing. And that is pretty much where you can find me. I do have a website, but I only update it like 2 times a year, and that's just for libraries so that they, you know, can see what I'm presenting about or offering as topics. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, good timing when the little goblins attack that we're wrapping up here. So they want attention now. So awesome. Well, as always, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to our next wormhole that we dive down, and the next topic that you make me research off to down more things.
Hey, I could have really blown your mind and sent you the presentation for the cannibals of human folklore, and you would have been like calling me like, really. We
didn't even cover submarines either, because I know there's some Sheboygan has like a haunted sub that you can go in and stuff now, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Who would have thought that there's submarines in Lake Michigan there?
I
don't know. All right, well, You take care. I will talk to you again, I'm sure, very soon. But it's always a pleasure having you on. You're a wealth of knowledge and a good friend, and I look forward to the next time that our paths cross. So,
Oh, thank you.
absolutely. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming along here today and watching and listening to our show. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. I will greatly miss Shetan, seeing her at conventions and all over the United States with all the events that we do together. So thank you all, guys, for tuning in today and enjoying this with me and all of you guys. So until next time, guys, take care, be well, and remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. I'll see you next time.
You seem to know something.